friends, my name is Shayla and today I am here with a video about how I read so much and how you could potentially read more. Now, this video is not going to have anything to do specifically with reading speed. I don't really have any tips to share with you on that. I did take some speed reading courses like when I was in school, and maybe I subconsciously implement those now, so I don't have much to say on that. Thankfully, my friend Murphy over at Murphy Napier just this morning, and upon filming this, actually created a video about how to increase your reading speed. So I will leave that linked down below for you if you are wanting to increase your speed while keeping your comprehension level high, because that's what her video is all about. It's very thorough. I did watch it all the way through, and I do think some of those tips will help some people. So I will leave that to you guys to go and check out if that is what you're interested in. This is more along the lines of looking at your priorities when it comes to reading and seeing what is in line for you, and some other little tips and tricks that I've found that help me read more books at a time, again, while keeping my comprehension level high. I've got notes on my phone, so forgive me if I'm looking down. It's just verifying that I'm talking about the right thing at the right time. So the first tip I have for you is actually reading short form fiction. Things like manga, graphic novels, novellas, along those lines. People forget that these are still reading. This is more for my people who read a lot of prose, not my manga readers who watch this channel. But short form fiction makes it look like I read a lot more than I probably actually do to most people. A volume of manga, on average, a standard size volume, not an omnibus volume, mind you, takes me on average a half an hour to an hour to read, depending on how dense the text is within the manga. Some people like to read their manga a lot slower than that. And I'm just going to be upfront with you. That's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's one of those things where sometimes they like to spend a lot more time looking at the art than I personally do. I do enjoy the art as I go through, but it's one of those things where I'm in it for the story and the beautiful art. And so I'm getting both of those as I'm reading through, and I'm comprehending and remembering all of that. So it's a matter of personal timing, I guess, on that. So some people will take a lot longer to read those things. I personally don't. And especially when it comes to like novellas, those are nice, short, little, like 80 to, I think they consider a novella up to 200 page books. And they're really great. They're really fun. And I've found a lot of novellas that I end up really loving and enjoying. So go ahead and look for those. You can always find them on Amazon digitally for like $1. So just go do some perusing. I think you'll find some fun ones. The next tip is digital reading. So I do tend to read faster when I'm reading something digitally. I don't know if it's just because I'm so used to reading from my phone that when it's in that format, I read faster, or because I'm flipping more pages faster, it feels like I'm reading faster. I don't know if I actually am. I feel like I do. I feel like on my digital e-arcs, I don't spend nearly as much time as I do on my physical arcs, but I'm still retaining and remembering everything. So maybe try reading digitally, like on a Kindle, or even on like a Kindle app on your phone, or a Nook, or whatever you have to read digitally on. Give that a try and see if your, like, how quickly you read a book increases or not. Find 2 books that have the same amount of pages and read one digitally and read one physically, and see if that makes a difference. Because I know to a lot of people that does make a difference. So my husband's one of those. He prefers to read digitally over physically. So again, that's a personal preference thing. But I do find that when I'm reading those digital arcs that come in from NetGalley or publishers or whatever, I tend to read them more quickly, and I enjoy them. I still enjoy them very thoroughly, and I'm not skipping anything or anything like that. I just tend to read them quicker. My third tip for this video is reading in multiple formats at a time. So at any given time, I have a physical book I'm reading, a digital book I'm reading, an audio book that I'm listening to, and usually I have like a volume of manga with me at all times as well. So I can handle multiple stories at a time that are relatively similar. Most people cannot. So I recommend that if you're going to do multiple formats, keep the books wildly different. Like, have your audiobook be a contemporary, have your physical book be a fantasy, have your digital book be a sci-fi, or whatever. Just make sure the stories are different enough that it's easy for you to still comprehend which story that you're in. When it comes to like throwing in a volume of manga into my reading, I can be in the middle of a chapter on somewhere, but I'm like frustrated with it and I pause. What I can do is I grab a volume of manga and I do almost like a palate cleanser with it. So it just kind of cleanses everything, lets me finish processing what was going on there while I enjoy the story, and then I can go back to it. So that's kind of how I use my manga in my reading. Lately, I've really been enjoying my prose, so I haven't been reading as much manga, which is probably surprising to some people because I've been voraciously reading manga all year. But I'm still reading manga. It's not that I'm not reading it, it's that I'm not needing to read it quite as much. So that's one thing that you can do is just make sure, in the beginning at least, make sure if you're doing multiple formats to make sure the stories are different enough that they're easy to distinguish between the two. Tip number 4 is to watch less TV. I have to admit, I probably don't watch more than an hour of TV a day most days. Mondays I tend to watch a little bit more just because that's my husband and I's movie night, so we sit down and we watch a movie together. So we're usually looking at anywhere from an hour and a half to 2.5 hours as we sit and watch a movie together, because my husband really enjoys movies and we have a huge backlog of movies to get through. And so on Mondays, I set aside enough time to do that with him, and that's also because that's my day off, so I do get a lot of reading done through other parts of the day once I accomplish other tasks, of course. But it's one of those things where if you feel like you're watching a ton of TV, you can always switch that time to be reading a book or reading a volume of manga or reading a graphic novel or whatever it is that you're reading. The other thing you can do is like while you're cleaning, listen to an audiobook, things like that. You can always be doing something while reading for the most part. And if you don't really like what's on the TV, read a book while you're sitting there with your partner watching TV. That's totally allowed. Obviously have that discussion with your partner. Some partners would not be cool with that, but I know that mine is. Anytime I want to read, Steve is down for it because he's got shows he wants to watch without me and he's got video games. Like, he has ways to entertain himself. I am not his entertainer. That is not how we work as a couple. We like to be in the same room doing whatever makes us happy, and that works for us. Your partner might be different, so that's a discussion for you guys to have. Tip number 5 is to put down your phone. If you think about all the time that you spend scrolling Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and watching YouTube videos, you could easily take an hour of that time away and spend it reading a book, and you would get through a lot more books in a year. Check your screen time. If you don't like what you see, set a timer for an hour and read, and then go back to whatever you were doing on your phone. So that's just a priority thing. A lot of people work basically from their phones. I know that I do. I do a lot of social media work for my work as well as for this platform. And so I do spend more time on my phone than I typically would like. But, you can always spend that screen time while you're waiting for something or, waiting for comments to come in on something. You can always be reading a digital book on your phone while you wait so that you don't miss the notifications. So it's just a matter of aligning those priorities. I should also mention I am blessed with a job where I have enough downtime that I get to read in between my clients. So I do get a lot of extra reading done at work that most people don't, which is why what I read in a month usually far exceeds a lot of people's, because I have a job where I get to read all day. Most people don't. I'm very blessed. So anyways, I just needed to throw that in here so you guys didn't think I was being completely unrealistic. Item number 6 is to read multiple stories at a time. If you're doing the multiple formats thing, you're kind of naturally already doing this, but you can be reading more than one book at a time. Like, you can be doing a buddy read with friends and reading 50 to 100 pages a day in that book, and then be reading something else for you on the side. That's usually what I do. I've been doing a lot of more buddy reading recently, so I'll read the buddy read material for the day first to make sure I don't miss those, though I did miss yesterday's if I'm honest. And then I will shift to my read just for me, and then go from there. So I've got multiple physical books that I'm reading at a time right now. I'm in the middle of 2 buddy reads, and then just whatever I'm reading for me. So you can definitely be reading multiple books at a time. That does take some time to adjust to doing that. Some people can't shift back and forth like that, and that's okay. These are just tips that work for me. These are not necessarily going to be for everyone, but I hope you guys are getting something out of this video anyways. But yes, reading multiple stories at a time is completely okay. And again, it's easiest if they're slightly different. Like right now, one of my buddy reads is a fae fantasy. The other one is a fairy tale retelling. And then the books that I've been reading, for me, I have a lot of digital arcs of like romances. So I've been trying to get through those as well as my buddy reads. And that's been really fun because, you know, it's ARC August right now at the time of filming this video. I don't know when you guys will see it. But yes, so reading multiple stories at a time is completely possible. Most people like to keep them as different things or something that's easily distinguishable between them. So that's my little tip for reading multiples at a time. Tip number 7 is to take a book with you everywhere. So at all times, I have a physical book, a volume of manga, and my e-reader on me. And then I do my audiobooks from Audible, which is on my phone, so that's with me at all times. So I have 4 different types of reads with me at all times. Sometimes I take multiple physical books with me if I'm in the middle of buddy reads. Right now I've got a little bag that I take with me everywhere where I carry all my books, my annotating materials, and all that kind of stuff in it, and I keep it with me. I typically will, it's usually just to work and back. I don't go too many other places, and so that's been really helpful for me because then I always have my materials with me so that when I have a slower day than normal, like I have a cancellation or something, I can really get into one of the books that I'm annotating or whatever and go from there. But when you think about it, like there's so many opportunities you have to read all day that you just don't think about. Tip number 8 is to participate in readathons for extra motivation. I know a lot of people will bust it really hard during readathons, but the rest of the time they're much more casual about their reading. So if you feel like you're that person, there's always, I swear, every week there's somebody hosting a readathon somewhere. So you can easily find a readathon anytime that you want to participate in. And once you get into the habit of reading more in general, you won't need the readathons to keep up that pace. So that's just my little tidbit there. Tip number 9 is to like take the long way home while you're listening to an audiobook. So a lot of us just by nature take the shortest route home when we're commuting home from work. But if you have an easy commute home, maybe take the longer route home and get an extra few minutes in on your audiobook. Another thing with audiobooks you can do is you can increase your reading speed. I typically don't go above 1.5 because I feel like my comprehension drops after that. 1.5 is as high as I go. I know a lot of people out there who do it at 2 times speed or even 3 times speed. I can't comprehend as much when I do that. So I keep mine at 1.5 or lower. And from there, I keep my comprehension level high, but I do get through them quicker. And there are times where I will purposely like drive somewhere, even though I could walk, so that I get more audiobook time. And as I like walk and exercise, I do listen to my audiobook then. So I get a lot of reading time in. But usually on my way to work, I get about an hour's worth of reading in. And on my way home, I'll get anywhere from half an hour to an hour, depending on how I drive home and what time of day. All those kinds of things. Sometimes when there's no one at the salon, I will pop on my audiobook and listen to that instead of listening to the radio. So there's all sorts of different things that you can do, but find ways and excuses to listen to your audiobooks because that will help you get through more books quicker. As I mentioned in a previous video, Audible now has Audible Escape, which is a service where you can listen to unlimited audiobooks of their romance titles. If you're already an Audible member, it's like $6 or $7 a month. And then if you're not, it's like $12 or $13 a month. So it's cheaper than the full membership. Now, I don't know if you actually own these at that point, but you can listen to as many as you want in a month. And so I really enjoy that format. I've been utilizing that quite a bit because I've been blowing through Tessa Bailey's backlog and it's been a lot of fun, let me tell you. And then my last tip is to take all the extra time that you have during a day and stick a book in front of you at that point. So I'm talking like breaks at work, lunch breaks, all those kinds of things. Because even if you have like a 15-minute break at work, most people can fit a short chapter in. So that will help. And then lunch breaks are half an hour to an hour, depending on where you work. So you can easily get a couple of chapters in there and all sorts of things. Or like if it's a half an hour to an hour, I usually read a volume of manga just because that's what I tend to enjoy. So Anyways, I hope you find this video helpful to you. I am not the God or gospel on all of this, but I do hope you find these tips helpful. If you have other tips for people that I did not mention in this video, please leave them in the comments down below. And just a reminder, this was not about reading speed. If you do want to up your reading speed and comprehension, then Murphy's video is linked down below because she was very thorough. I was very impressed, as she always is thorough. I always really enjoy her content. So you can definitely check out her video on that. I may do one of those in the future, but it doesn't feel right for me to do that right now. But anyways, again, I hope this video is helpful to you. If you ever want to buddy read something with me, as long as I own it, I'm down. So go ahead and let me know, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.